building God. Imagine living in a city about the size of London, populated entirely by babies. Imagine living there for a year and in the course of that time watching all of the babies starve to death. 13.3 dead babies per minute on average. 7 million babies a year dead from starvation. You've got food, as much as you need, enough for everyone, for all the babies, for everyone. But they're babies, they're helpless, they can't feed themselves. Only you can feed them, and there's only one of you. You race from baby to baby. You sleep only when you collapse with fatigue. But there's 7 million babies. 13.3 dead babies per minute on average. An hour TV show would last 800 dead babies. You could even that up to 1K per hour. Naturally, you would even it up to the next highest number, since the basic groundswell of starving dead babies is always increasing. In the music industry, you would call that 7 million with a bullet. Maybe we could put it on the stock exchange, the Dow Jones Index, the Hang Seng Index, the Dead Baby Index. This poem is 13 dead babies long. What is to be done? The revolution will not come until it has pierced your heart. Until every cruelty and injustice, no matter who it is done to, feels as if it were done to you. Until you are naked, open wide, wounded by every homeless cry, a mother to every hungry child, stranded in the forest flame, swallowing smoke and tears of rage, running from the thunder of a helicopter gun, the revolution will not come. Until your back aches and the sun bakes you and the pain breaks you, until every minute of your life hurts and the ripe fruit falls down into the dirt because your fingers and your bones and your brain are numb, the revolution will not come. Until every cop car is looking for you, for what you are, not what you do, and you stand on the earth branded by the wrong accent, the wrong color skin, the wrong sexuality, the wrong mother tongue, too fat, too thin, too old, too young, the revolution will not come. Until you walk the street bearing unwanted seed, condemned to breed by men who call you girl and think they bloody own the world. Until you stare up into the hate-filled face of a rapist thrusting into you. When you can smell his breath, taste a rancid kiss. When your stomach twists in anger and disgust. When you can feel all this as if it were done to you. It's not enough. Because the revolution will not come until it has made you wise. So what if you hate injustice? So what if you're willing to die to make a change? It's not enough to be brave, not even enough to love unless love leads to wisdom when push comes to shove. So you learn to read books and faces. You study what gender and race is. You look at science and the economy, at every class and group in society. You study the past, but you don't live in it. You don't worship it. You don't pick through the rubble for a lost God to believe in. You read history not with a branding iron, but a blowtorch. You are not a king. You are not a priest. You are not singing in the bloody choir. You are the fire that burns through history. Your genealogy is written in the ashes of burnt-out villages, crucified slaves, weavers chained to their looms, heretics burned at the stake, screaming at the truth. How many thousands of years of fighting each other over the never enough, one class after another rising to the top and beating back down everyone else with laws and religion and bullets when you don't listen. How many thousands of years of system after system and always the same fundamental division. You work, they rule. But you are more than just a talking tool. Let the revolution be your school. Study the connections. And you begin to see the chains of slavery are chains of power too. They connect you to an army of the dispossessed. And it's an army you will need, because the revolution will not come until it has made you strong. Power is a good thing. Try living without it. But without a doubt, it divides into two. The power to win is the power to lose. Power is nothing but the power to choose. It's only as good as how you use it. But never forget, you are not begging for mercy. You are fighting for power. How will you break free of the ingrained habits of a lifetime? How will you gain control of your own minds? How will you bring it together to set off a chain reaction? And if you win, how will you fight off the armies that come to crush you? And if you win, how will you feed the world? And if you win, how will you carry through? How will you free the world? Be leaders who know how to be led. Be teachers who know how to be taught. Revolution is a war that has to be fought. They got the guns and the weapons of mass communication. You got the power to the people that comes with organization. You got the power to the people, but you better believe they hate it. If you give them a chance, they'll break it. You know, it's only as good as you make it. You got the power to the people. Are you ready to take it? Arithmetic on the barricades. We lie in ambush. The book opens and the numbers come charging out in columns. The gulag of Auschwitz. Resistance is futile. There is no hope. We are evil, all of us, the best or the worst. Yeah, victory to the Viet Cong, but when the dance is over, the guillotine is inevitable. You can sit there knitting or grow hoarse with futile shouting, but the piper is a psychopath and he will always get his pay. There was a time when the whole planet seemed about to catch fire, and this was thought to be a good thing. But they have taken away our victories. A lifetime's knowledge is dismissed with an ironic smile. Religion and superstition rule the earth. Trinkets and beads, what you can buy for trinkets and beads. And so the dead will not be counted. They will not lie still. They leap from border to border, changing countries as often as they change skins. It's a Chinatown movie. Grab a corpse and slap it in the face. Where did you die? Cambodia. Slap it again. Where? East Timor. Slap it again. Where? Slap it again. Where? And so the dead will not be counted. They will not lie still. They have no master because anyone can own them, claim their bodies, wave their names like a flag for any cause, true or false, good or bad. And so we lie in ambush. The book opens and the numbers come charging out in columns. The numbers are against us. They always were. This is a ballad of the fanatical, radical, bloodthirsty lunatics in the Cultural Revolution. They lost, by the way, so we can say whatever we want to say. They ate grandmothers for breakfast, drank babies' blood in their morning tea. They had brunch on the bones of dead dogs and cats, and after that, they had lunch. Then they got mean. Sometimes I feel like I've just been let out of a lunatic asylum where I was being treated for delusions of revolutionary possibilities. To my shame, I tried to cooperate with the treatment. But now that I'm back out on the street again, I want to make up for it. I want to tell the truth. Still, I have to be careful not to arouse any suspicions that my programming might not have been a complete success. So imagine this is a fairy tale or a fantasy or a science fiction novel of an alternate universe where the Cultural Revolution was actually led by a band of dedicated idealists willing to die if necessary in the cause of human kindness and creativity. And imagine that they were able to ignite a revolution that took power in a country that numbered 1/5 of the entire human race. And imagine that this power was used to build schools, end starvation, make literacy almost universal, extend healthcare to 750 million people, and imagine that the news of this spread out across the planet like a prairie fire. Catch a Fire was the album of a generation. But it's a new day now. Are you washed in the blood of the cash cow? Bleeding money and malice into the idea stream. It's not the fluoride they dump into the water. It's every beat of the bioelectric connection. A catechism of chemical thinking. A platitude for every occasion getting broadcast on all channels from mother's milk to toothpaste. Welcome to the post-human race. How do you go against that? It's a goddamn river running in the wrong direction. It's a riptide. How do you go against that? You gotta be more than a strong swimmer. You gotta be creative. You gotta be connective. You gotta be collective. You gotta be corrective. But you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, not even if they poop in it. It takes a lot of shit to make a good garden, and you are growing the most precious crop in the known universe. Consciousness. This is a hymn of praise to the gardeners of the earth. This is a hymn of praise for the gardens they made. This is a song of sorrow for the days of love and danger. This is a song of remembrance. This is a will and testament. This is a wake. This is a message from the old century to the new, from the old revolutions to the ones to come, from the dead to their daughters and sons. What if you were in love? Not the gooey, chewy, moon, June, baboon kind of love, the real thing. Ready to lay down your life. What if you were in love with the whole human race? One-to-one with those around you, but also you were down for the general idea. One big family to love and protect. What if you could see things? Maybe just because you cared so much. What if you could see things so you looked harder and you studied more? What if you could see things? Wouldn't you have to sound a warning? Wouldn't you have to do what you could do? Wouldn't you have to pass on what you knew? What if the streets were lined with beggars, hunger sitting on the front door, sons and daughters butchered in a senseless war? What if you rose up and took back your city, took it in your own name for the first time? The shoeless warriors of the Paris alleys, laying down a new law where nothing would be the same. Bread for the hungry, work for all, universal education, police and army dissolved, new courts, justice for the first time, the end of slavery, every kind. The Paris Commune of 1871, drowned in blood before it was half begun. They slaughtered you in the streets and alleys, slaughtered you in the tens of thousands, slaughtered men, women, and children, and you fought back for every inch of Paris, fought back, resolute and hopeless, reached out with bloody fingers, wrote your story on the ruined walls for us to read. Imagine a dream where you're in the middle of painting a beautiful picture and someone is trying to kill you. You slap on the paint, dodging bullets and blows. Your life is on the line, but you know the work is good. Maybe the most beautiful thing you've ever been a part of. You know it's worth the risk. But when the painting goes on exhibit as a work in progress, the Murdoch presses of the world send in their agents to demolish it. That's not art, they say. There's a bullet hole in the canvas and the paint. There's blood in it. Disgusting. They don't care if the blood is mostly yours. You're no artist, they say. You're a butcher. And everybody believes them. They own the word. Printed up, broadcasted day by day, minute by minute. Every time a new way of talking pops up, they sit on it. But maybe it's time to let the dead speak. The undeceived. Those who died knowing what they died for. Not all wars are equal. Not every death weighs the same. Take a look at the world with Christ-like compassion, Buddha love swimming around in your brain. Every death does deserve our sorrow, but not every death is the same. What if it were possible to understand the world? Not all of it, obviously, but more and more of it every day. Wouldn't that understanding come with an obligation? Maybe the Buddha had a point. Go back out into the world. Spread the word. Spread the idea. The Russian Revolution was an idea that we could live in a world where cruelty and injustice were not just a part of the mix. It was an idea that those who did the work deserved their own turn of the wheel. It was an idea that this was possible, that we could learn to live and work together in cooperation without the god of the market laying down the law. It was an idea that the wellspring of creativity in everyday working people was beyond measure, that as an untapped power it could transform the world. It was an idea worth dying for, and millions did. every major capitalist power on the planet invaded, sent in guns, troops, and ammunition, armed the parasites, then sat back on the mountaintop to watch the tigers fight. 8 million died in the civil war that followed, farms and factories left in rubble. 7 million children living on the street, famine and disease grown fat and sleek. When the war was won, we started again from the ground up. But already the next attack was on the horizon. 26 million died when Hitler invaded. We were the world's first long-term socialist state, caught up in a contradiction we couldn't anticipate. Spreading the revolution is not the same as fighting to preserve what is already there. We were the hope and dream of all mankind. It seemed like the most important thing in the world to keep that dream alive. But all our courage and sacrifice came to nothing because we made the wrong choice. We were almost destroyed, but we never gave up. We never surrendered, but we gave up too much. We sold out the revolution in Spain to delay the invasion. We sold out the cause of women's liberation to build a false unity inside our nation. We treated many who only made mistakes as if they were nothing but enemy agents. We won the war, but we paid a terrible toll. We won the war, but we lost our soul. Revolution falls down like rain from the clouds of war. No pure, sweet springtime shower. The air is thick with drops of blood. Only a madman would wish this on his children. Only a madman would choose it for himself. What is this thing that drives women and men to risk death, even to walk into it willingly? And how is it different from Islam or Christianity? They all tap down into the same deep wellspring of humanity, the terrible power of love, of the tiger for her cubs. But a heart full of love and a head full of ignorance can be the most dangerous thing in the world. Instinct isn't enough. Faith is blind. Even our deepest ideas of right and wrong grow up out of a world in chains. Everything has to be looked at, tested, taken apart, and put back together again. They talk about woodshedding in jazz, where you go out into a shed at the back of the house and you do the work. You learn a new language, a new way of thinking, a new way of making noise and giving it meaning. You're tapping into the deep down of the body, but also you're engaging with a history of hundreds of millions of individuals just like you, who danced, who moved, who felt the rhythm build up in their bones and brain and burst back out into the fingers and toes again, over and over, for thousands of years. So you learn your scales, or maybe you make up new ones. But even then, you're part of a tradition that has to constantly be tested and reinvented. What kind of an instrument do you play? Maybe it's a saxophone. You check out every possible noise it can make. You learn to squeal, rattle, and shake. You fight off every prejudice and preconception about what makes a good scale or a bad note. But even so, who made the instrument? What was in their ears for the thousands of years? Or maybe you made a whole new instrument yourself. But then what and who made the instrument of you? From the time before religion, when wonder was born, to wood nymph and water sprite, sun god and thunderstorm, we looked out onto the galaxy, dug deep into the atom, and God retreated into the blue hills of abstraction. We went looking for love in the moon and the stars. We went looking for God. Instead, we found us. We dreamed of a world less cruel before we could clothe it in words. We cradled it in our arms, nursed it on our breast, watered it with our tears, buried it with our dead. And when the green shoots of our longing blossomed into speech, we wove such tales of wonder and consequence. Every parable and myth, even our commandments, came dripping with the sweat of the wonders we would do. But only if we understood that the stories were not true, until we made them true, here on earth. collection of the ways of testing what evidence is reliable and what isn't. And it's a collection of strategies for stringing that evidence into new theories that enable us to make predictions about the world around us and to do things in it. But also, it's a method for demolishing those theories with new evidence and building a bigger, better theory out of the rubble of the old. Science is revolution in the field of knowledge. With science, tradition is tested. With science, knowledge grows. But is this a good thing when every new piece of the puzzle seems to come locked up inside its own poison apple? Taste me, and I will show you how to destroy the world. If only we were ruled by lizards. We could hunt them down, put them in a zoo. If only there could be some vast conspiracy. Then all we need to do is find the leaders, cook them in a stew, feed the hungry, start out new. Some say we do it to ourselves. Not true. The fact is, we are ruled by an algorithm, an implacable mathematical formula. Money into capital, capital to commodities, sold back into money again. But always increasing until the next big crash kicks in. Competing, fighting to stay alive, kill or be killed, grow or die. The lizard people, because there are reptiles. But they don't rule the algorithm. The algorithm rules them. You can try to wipe out the lizards, but the system breeds them. Spontaneous generation. The lizard is forever, or so it seems. Maybe you want to change all this. Not so easy to do. You're part of the nest, body and brain. That's how you grew. You gotta be careful. You could become a lizard too. You can't do it alone. You gotta reach out. It's a labor of love. One nest, one heart. You gotta pull it apart, pull out all the threads if you want to get at the lizard inside your head. You can't do it alone. You gotta reach out. It's a labor of love. One nest, one heart. You gotta pull it apart, pull out all the threads if you want to get at the lizard inside your head. Imagine you're living in a city with in a country with 750 million people inside its borders. 3 times the entire population of North America. Twice the entire population of Africa. Everywhere you look, you see pain and suffering. You can't look away, and you don't want to. You want to take it all in, straight to the heart. You know, in the big cities, they sweep up dead bodies off the street every day. You know, they chain workers to the machines. You can see starvation, people driven from their homes, women treated like cattle, babies murdered for the crime of being female. You can see the countryside torn into pieces by feuding warlords, predator nations chewing on the bones. In the foreign enclaves, the signs on the windows say, no Chinese and no dogs. And this is China. You start out as a teacher, but you won't teach what you're told. You look at the dirty hands of the peasants on the street and you come to see your hands are dirty. Theirs are clean. You make your way to the big city. You study every book you can lay your hands on. You find out about Marx and the idea of communism. You come to believe that a revolution can succeed, but only if the working class can lead. Not because they're the biggest class in China. Far from it. Not because they're special people or even the most oppressed. They're not. But you understand that individuals can rise up out of their class position. Peasants can get land and become landlords. Colonies can get power and become predator nations. But working people as a class cannot be free until everyone is free, shares in the work, owns the tools they need to build the world collectively. Until race and sex, brain and brawn, town and country become sources of richness and creativity. Until every old idea that props up class society is challenged and debated, understood, and struck down. You join a party that stands for the things you've come to believe in. You lead strikes and take part in peasant rebellions. When the government armies attack and kill tens of thousands, You lead a long march into the country. You set up a base and begin to build a new society where peasants farm the land in cooperation, where everyone has the right to an education, where foot binding and forced marriage are a crime, where women hold up half the sky. You build a great army. You take down the warlords, drive out the invaders, occupy the cities, break the chains in every factory. When you march into China, you say, the people of China have stood up. But that was only the beginning. It was never just about China the nation. That was only the first step on the road to liberation. And now the party and its army split into two factions. Some say, this is our stop. We get off here. Now it's time. We were okay with a bit of democracy, but now it's time to build up the factories, put the revolution on hold indefinitely. But you believe the most powerful force in the world has an idea whose time has come. Political power grows out of the barrel of a gun, but that means nothing if the gun is pointed in the wrong direction. You see party leaders feathering their nest, healthcare only for the upper crust, university open only to the elite. You say the Ministry of Culture should be renamed the Ministry of Emperors, Ghosts, and Concubines because there's nothing about peasants, nothing about workers, nothing about the life they lead, the work they do, or the ideas buzzing around inside their head. The revolution is not going too slow. It's going backwards. So you put out the call for a new revolution against your own party. Bombard the headquarters. But here's the contradiction. It takes power to change the world. It takes power to change a light bulb. It takes power to build schools. It takes power to change the rules. You need a party to lead the fight, but the fight is inside the party too. You study the Russian Revolution and you come to see the fight will always be the most intense in the center, at the top of the party, because the lizard people breed wherever there is power and prestige. But it's not enough to just chuck out the lizards, because you are fighting an algorithm, and it isn't a person or even a thing. It's a pattern embedded in an almost infinite number of individual transactions. Step by step, you have to change the way things are done, the way goods are produced and passed on, but most of all, the way people think. Because either money moves the world, either the algorithm rules, or the people do. And people power is most of all about ideas. People power is love, crystallized into thought and deed. So you roll the dice, and you take your ideas to the street. For 10 long years, the battle rages on. The Cultural Revolution. Peasants, workers, students, soldiers, on every corner, in every factory, school, and farm, even in the army, challenging authority. Which side are you on? Communism or capitalism? One simple question, but oh so complex in application. In every situation, does this unleash the creative powers of the people, or does it suppress them? And the lizards fight back. They wave the red flag too. Anyone could do it. They organize their own red guards to fight against your red guards. They mobilize the sections of the army loyal to them. And when you die, they win. They kill your comrades or put them in prison. They write a new history. They create an industry of victim literature. Those who died fighting for revolution are used as statistics to support the very thing they were fighting against. The return of capitalism, the end of worker power and peasant cooperation, the end of healthcare and universal education. Inside and out, China becomes a predator nation. Even immortal ideas can die. Unforgettable lessons can be unlearned. But there are those who remember, who were inspired, and those who will become inspired. Because we will never stop fighting to spread the word. We will never stop fighting to learn from the amazing things the people of China did. We will honor their memory even to the point of learning from their mistakes. Because revolution is a science. and it learns from failure. Fail again, fail better, fail again, fail better, but never just the same thing repeated over and over again. And maybe it seems like nothing has changed. The algorithm still rules, riding on our backs, driving the planet to an early grave. But in another sense, in another way, everything has changed. Because now we know it can be done. It was almost done in Russia. It was almost done in China. It took capitalism hundreds of years to replace feudalism. And that was only to change one system, one ruling class for another. We are fighting for so much bigger than that, so much more than that, and we have only just begun. A message to the Matrix. I am the voice of the dead. I am the voice of the living who remember why the dead have died. I am the voice of science and fearless questioning. I am the voice of the unborn who will come to demand an accounting. I am the voice of those who do not need to imagine a friendly universe or a loving God or even a hating, vengeful God to give them a reason for living, whose only baptism is in the ocean of possibility. We scorn all shipwrecks. We scorn all swimming sharks. We scorn the scary tale peddlers of a buttoned-down human nature who endlessly preach over the radio, TV, internet airwaves. Yes, the beach is beautiful, and the ocean is warm and caressing, and the horizon is blue and inviting. But when the sun goes down, and it always goes down, the sky will turn into a blood-red sunset. There is always a blood-red sunset, and we say, let it bleed. It is our blood you are spilling, and we will not die forever. We will kill. We will kill this disease that you call freedom when it is nothing but a license for plunder. We will kill this disease that you call what is possible. We will kill it and do the impossible. We will kill this disease that you call human nature and we call the chains of slavery branded into our minds, wrapped around us like a python. There is no Garden of Eden, and the only snake in the game is you and your psychopathic ability to separate the sweetness of the life you live from the poison you spew out across the planet. We are the death knell of those who value their possessions more than our children. We do not know how to fight you and win, but we know how to die. We have practiced it for thousands of years. We've been fighting you since forever. We are still fighting you. We will go on fighting until the earth is wiped clean of your corruption. We are out to transform the planet, terraform the mind, visionize the blind who can't see past the ugly tomorrow that you have painted onto the horizon. We understand the magnitude of what we are planning. We will die for nothing less. Not a changing of the guard, no matter how bright and shiny their new uniforms. Not just throwing out the money changers. We will tear down the temple. We will swallow the earth mouthful of dirt and sin and confusion, and we will learn to love each other. Not just in our heads, not just in our prayers, not just in our family and friends. We will embrace the planet and every creature on it. We will bring ourselves turnips and spinach and rice and microchips. The tree has been planted and we have cultivated it for thousands of years with our pain, our blood, our shame, our sweat and bone and hope and skin and despair. And we are ready for the harvest now. We know you would rather burn down the orchard than let us taste it. We have paid a terrible price for your hatred. And we have made mistakes, terrible mistakes. We were bound to. We were trying to build a world that had never even been fully imagined before. We were trying to build a world that was not ruled by money, that was not organized into the buying and selling of people as if they were things. And we understood, we got it. We realized we would have to find a new way of feeding the hungry, a new way of lighting up the ignorant mind, of sweetening the heart and soul made bitter by hunger and humiliation, a new way of deciding between tractors and shoes, between lip gloss and sugarcane. And we would do this by talking, arguing, debating, blasting our ideas up into the sky and pulling them back down out of the clouds to rain down into a new garden, blossoming on the earth. We died for this in Russia. We died for this in China. We died for this in every street and alley, jungle and field that ever saw the hatred of oppression burst into flame. And you can measure the things we did. You can count them in the women who were set free of the tyranny of husband, church, and court. in the peasants who were set free from the land, set free from the ownership of landlord and famine, in the nations that were given the right of self-determination, given alphabets and teachers, in the minds that were given access to the secrets of newspapers, books, and journals for the first time, in the millions who were given what should have been theirs from the start, the right to thrive, to grow, to learn, to challenge, to explore, to reach out for power, agency, light, and grace. We are the dawn of a new human race, slaughtered at birth again and again, but still quick and alive in the dream we dreamed from the beginning. Cradled in our breast, watered with our tears, buried with our dead. We are the river no dam can tame. The salt air of the ocean is in our veins. A message to our children. We do not ask you to look away from our mistakes. Just the opposite. Study them. Learn from them. You have to do better next time. But you can't understand our defeat unless you understand the amazing things we did accomplish. And also, understand what we were trying to do. We were so much like you. Learn from us the way we learned from the revolutions that came before us. It's up to you now.